lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. I'm Ryan, got my co-host Manny with me today, and we are going to be talking about a classic. We're going to be talking about the Bear Saga, the New Mutants.
Hell yeah.
Chris Claremont, Bill Sienkiewicz. This is my first time reading it.
I hadn't read it in many, many years, so in a lot of ways, it felt like it was my first time reading it also.
Yeah, I'm super stoked, and I love this whole comics too. So getting,
reading, I was just like, like I was just, the newsprint. It's amazing how good they still look,
Yeah, it's crazy too. Like, just before we get into it, I know that you read some of it in the collection. I'm so glad I didn't kind of read it in the collection, because I know sometimes when I read an old story and the way they color it with that just very bright white paper, it's sometimes I can't. It just it makes the reading almost a chore for me.
Yeah, you could tell I like.
Oh, let me see that though. Oh, that's interesting. It's not as bad as I mean, because look,
this was a good. And I bought this for $4, like at Books A Million, when they were they always have like a discount rack. And if you have a Books A Million near you, I recommend you check out their discount rack. I found X-Men Grand Design for $5 there.
What the fuck?
I know they don't know what they put on there, because I guess it's just it's not the big thing at the moment, so they'll just discount it and stick it there. I have found amazing things, in their discount.
I'm on I'm on the wrong side of the country, dude, because there's no Books A Million, there's no Ollie's. I see all these people posting about Ollie's and the giant Kirby books for like $20. I'm like, this is bullshit, dude. Why can't there be one of those here? Like, all we have out here for bookstores is Barnes and Noble, and then I guess used bookstores, but it's not the same. Like, those are chains you're talking about. I know I've ordered from Books A Million online, and they have good deals. So that's fucking crazy, $5 for Grand Design. But anyway, so I was really stoked. You are the one that wanted to read this. You're the one that, because we have a list, right? We have a list of stuff that we've you and I'll add to and stuff that we want to talk about. And I was pretty stoked when you had mentioned this, because I had the issues. This is one of my back issue collection stuff that I've sitting waiting to read. And so I was like, okay, cool. It's actually something I can go pull out and start whittling away. And I loved it, dude. I really dug it. I didn't know anything about the story, to be honest with you.
That's the best way to go into this one, man, because it's such a different X-Men story. It to me, it almost reads like a horror movie. It's almost like a Freddy Krueger movie, to the point where one of my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movies is Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which is where the kids are in a hospital, being invaded by Freddy. And I'm almost was a Nightmare I gotta look at the dates. I was like, well, did one influence the other? Because there's such a dreamlike horror aspect to the Demon Bear that makes it stand out from other New Mutant arcs or even X-Men arcs. It's very unique, and getting Bill Sienkiewicz to draw this is a genius stroke. He's the perfect artist for this kind of story.
Yeah, I agree. And it's for me, I'm always skeptical is not the right word, but when I'm gonna read old Chris Claremont,
I know you're
he's a great writer. He's one of the best to ever do it. Obviously, his X-Men run is, he's created so much. He's added so much.
The X-Men would not we should say the X-Men would not be who they are today without Chris Claremont.
Correct, and not just the X-Men book, but the shoot-offs also. I mean, this is right. He launched New Mutants, but sometimes it's very hard for me to read.
It's very verbose. There's a lot of words which you got to give credit to. I always mispronounce his name, but he's one of my favorite letters.
Tom Warzikowski.
Yeah. He's lettered everything from this to Spawn.
Dude, so check that out. The credits, right? You have Chris Claremont writing, Bill Sienkiewicz artist, Glynis Wine, who I'm not sure on colors, Tom Warzikowski letter, Ann Nocenti is the editor, and Jim Shooter's editor in chief. That's just a murderer's row of talent. It's just crazy to see that, because I knew Ann Nocenti was an editor at Marvel. I just didn't know what book she was editing. I'm not super knowledgeable in that. I know more of the stuff that she's written. She
might have been the editor on New Mutants from the beginning. I don't know if she was in it towards the end, when Liefeld and stuff came on, but she definitely was there for the beginning and a lot of the stuff that set it up.
Yeah, and I mean, look, this is you talk about Sienkiewicz being the perfect artist for it. This is his first issue drawing. This is and it's weird too, because like in the single issues, you probably didn't see this, but like, so normally, how they say welcome to the new artist at the top of the page with the credits, like they didn't do that, but only 2 page. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 5th page is the letters pages, which is super odd that it's only 5, and that's where they welcome Bill Sienkiewicz, from Moon Knight, his dynamite, that New Mutants will give the dynamism it deserves and stuff. And I know that a lot of people didn't really dig, from what I've heard, they didn't really like his style on the book. I don't know if time passing and like we're older, so we more appreciate him now. Maybe that's why it's like, to me, it's like, well, no, this is great. I don't see how you could not like it, but I just think it is such a great story, and his style is so different now than also what we're seeing in here, right? Like this is also like early Bill Sienkiewicz. It's different from his Moon Knight, but it's still not what we know him as like today with some of the stuff he does. But I feel like it's like that last part is where he really starts getting a little bit more.
It's issue 20, which is why I pulled out my actual copy of it from the collection, because that's the one I think. I mean, the whole run is great and has great art, but that last issue is where he really ramps up like the surrealism and like the playing with like the anatomy and the form of the characters a little bit to give it like this nightmarish quality. I mean, look at this page, bro. It's gorgeous, like it's beautiful.
I like this opening page too, just like the first page to launch.
Yes, dude. Yes. It's such a great moment.
Like the demon bear, like I kind of knew a little bit, but I did not know that it's basically attacking her in her dreams. And you kind of already said that by saying Freddy Krueger. But I like this in the sense that if you've never read a New Mutants comic, I think this isn't a bad issue to start with, but it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, every issue is somebody's first issue, which is, I know that was one of Jim Shooter's things. And it's kind of how they used to write comics back then. And they'd have all this fucking like retelling you stuff, like in the narrative, to where sometimes it would pull me out. And that's one of the things that I don't like when I read some older comics, because I'm like, I don't need to know this especially when you read it in a trade. And I think that that's the problem. Those comics weren't written as they were going to be collected, because trade paperbacks weren't a thing. When they were writing it, like it did make sense every month, because it's been a month, so you maybe don't remember certain things or whatever. But they didn't do that in this. And this is still 84, so this is still like, kind of trade paperbacks aren't really super aren't a thing yet. And but I like this because it introduces each character to you. So if you don't know who the New Mutants are, you get just a little bit of each of them. And
because you have that danger room sequence, which was like one of Claremont's, like, I mean, it became a trope, right? But it really works because in the danger room sequences, you get all the information you really need about the characters. You get like their names, their code names, their powers, so like it's great. And he often opened a lot of his stories like that, I think, for that very reason. And it works very well here.
Yeah, I think that what was crazy too is because you're obviously in the future. So there's multiple storylines going on within this arc. Like there's a couple, like in it, but it doesn't. And I guess like you don't see that really now in comics either. That's more of like a TV type of thing where you see multiple storylines happening at once.
Yeah.
So you get like, you have the demon bear, right? But then you jump and it doesn't even really tell you that you jumped. But you have, this is Rachel Summers, which I can, right? That's right. And you're in the future. But when you get to page, I guess it'd be 7 and 8, the splash. This shit was insane, dude.
Yeah, dude. Professor X getting like shotgun through the fucking chest.
Look
bro.
at that, dude. Like that's.
I had forgotten about that image, and I remember I actually, when I reread it, I was like, holy shit,
Like that is fucking striking, dude. So Sienkiewicz just absolutely fucking killed it on this panel. And
like the movement of the wheelchair, you really do feel like the impact of
the splatter coming out back.
Yeah, like I mean, you could just see him getting shot through the chest and like moving back because of like the power of the blast, man.
Yeah, so that was fucking crazy. And then you jump, and then she's in the present now, right? And she's like, she doesn't understand where she doesn't even realize what she is, that she's in the past, but then you immediately jump to the danger room. So that I think the first issue is more where you deal with that, because I feel like Rachel's only in this part. You don't see her again moving forward. Obviously you have like Legion. There's a little bit of stuff with him that happens in here, but the main focus is this Demon Bear Saga with Danny Moonstar, who I've always liked her powers and shit. I think she's a cool one. Sam Guthrie, you have Cannonball, you have Sunspot, Magma. So I've always liked these characters. I've never read the beginning of this New Mutants run. Like, I know the characters, but like I came into New Mutants when Liefeld was drawing.
Yeah.
Like, those are the issues I've read.
I, for the most part, did too, because I mean that's when I started reading it. I mean, I remember I had the original like New Mutants graphic novel, which was like the introduction. It was like, it wasn't quite a treasury size, but it was. Like,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's when they used to do those original graphic novels, like the Death of Captain Marvel and stuff.
Exactly, that's it exactly. And I had that New Mutant graphic novel growing up, but it's something that I remember having. I don't necessarily remember reading it until much later. So over the years, as I've gotten older, I really liked trying to pick up as much New Mutants. So whenever I find them in dollar bins or whatever, and let me tell you, I found all the Demon Bear books in dollar bins, so they're out there, and they are totally worth $1. I mean, like if you see them, you need to grab them.
Yeah, 18 was not $1. That one was not cheap, but I know a lot of New Mutant stuff you can get on the cheap. I know that I think 21 maybe it's not first Warlock. I don't know. I know that 18 was
Warlock starts. I'm glad you mentioned Warlock, because I love Warlock. He's like one of my favorite characters from that era, and I've forgotten that like on top of the Demon Bear stuff, like we're introduced to Warlock in this arc. Really, it's like when he first starts to appear, and I'm like, so much happens in 3 fucking issues. Like that's one thing I was struck by, was like how efficient the writing is or at least the plotting is in that respect, because maybe Claremont can get a little verbose sometimes, but his plotting has always been on point, and he's able to keep all these plots going throughout the story and keep you engaged. It's a great run, man. And like I remember when we first were talking about recording this, you were like, bro, you realize it's only 3 issues, and I'm like, really? I'm like, fuck, you're right, dude, because the collection I have is padded out with like later storylines that had the Demon Bear come back, like from like other series and stuff like that. So like it's not even enough to fill a collection, like they had to pad it out with something, because it's 3 issues.
Yeah, I mean, this might be already like some of my favorite Claremont stuff I've read, to be honest with you. Like I really enjoy this storyline, and maybe it's because it's like it's nice, short, it's concise. Like you don't really need much on the front end or the back end. Like you get everything you need. And he doesn't spend a lot of time retelling you stuff and kind of dumbing it down for the reader. That's something I enjoy. And then Sienkiewicz, I'm a huge Sienkiewicz fan, and this is like a style that I don't normally see. I don't see of his, and I haven't read all those Moon Knights. Like I've seen them, but I haven't been able to read a lot of them. So to kind of like have this be like my first story that I've read of Sienkiewicz with this style that he had before he gets more into like the stuff he does with like Elektra, which he starts getting more like the Ralph Steadman type thing, where it's just like super manic and fucking mixed media and all that stuff. But I really dug this, dude. And like I have to say too, like I know that you probably don't see it the same way on your trade, but like the way Magma looks, like the coloring on her, it's like it's a trip. It looks crazy on newsprint. Like it's
No, it does, and I'm glad. I gotta go through the rest of my boxes, because I know I have all of them. I thought I had all my New Mutant stuff grouped together, but I don't. But yeah, man, the coloring is great, and like I know like Glennis Line. I know I've seen that name in countless comics of this era. So I know that they were one of the premier colorists at the time, and like, dude, I mean, coloring on newsprint. I mean, I'm not an artist, but I know enough to know that coloring for newsprint was different than coloring for like glossy. It's you got to use different palettes and stuff. But everything on here still pops, man. And like they're purposely also using like I think like a more muted palette, to sort of
a lot of reds too, man, to kind of like
give it this nightmarish quality.
Yeah, like this panel too, right here, like this one with there we go.
Yeah,
that's Danny in the background, and the bear. And I just really love these characters, and I love the realism that Sienkiewicz puts into the characters, like all their faces, the emotions he captures, every single he uses so many different angles, like where
Yes.
normally you see like somebody looking straight on, or you see just a straight side profile. But like if you look at this, like Ileana, right? Like what an unusual angle. It's not something you normally see. I don't know. This is
No.
just stuff that I noticed as I was reading. Like he's definitely taking different angles and stuff.
Yeah.
More of a cinematic feel to his
Yeah,
stuff as
I was
well.
gonna say cinematic, like for lack of a better term, like the
And
cinematography
then
of this
this
is
with Legion, like this is just and then it could take you out of the story, but it doesn't. You're just like, what the fuck am I looking at right now? You know, I can't imagine like people like reading this month to month, not knowing where this stuff ends up. Like maybe they're like, I don't know what the hell this is. Maybe that's why
yeah,
people didn't really dig it. I don't know, but
yeah,
you know, I think we have the benefit of time and knowing where
yeah.
the storylines lead and seeing what becomes of the characters. But I really love this battle of Danny with this bear, dude. And basically, you know, she's fighting this, and you at first you're like, is it in her head? Is it real? Is it in front
No,
of
yeah,
her?
but it is real. It's a real demon bear. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
But
really are fighting demons.
no. I mean like in the
Yeah.
physical world. Like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
you look like because like she's in the snow, but really she's out there in the woods, but it's in her head. These sequences of panels, dude. So
Yeah,
good.
dude, the way it towers, it's so amazing.
Yeah, and the face, it's just like a wall, like it's
I
just a
also love this.
wall of black, dude. Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah,
When they go into like his kind of dimension, but the
yeah.
solid black on the page, it's menacing, dude. It's very menacing.
I mean, like I said, it reads like a horror movie. It's like it really does read like one of the better Nightmare on Elm Street films. And I think even I haven't seen it yet. The recent New Mutants film that sat on the shelf for a while, and I think eventually it went straight to streaming. Pretty sure is adapts this storyline to a degree because I
Like
know
it's
that like the
loosely
character.
adapted, yeah.
Yeah, because the characters are all in a mental institution, and like it does deal with some kind of like demonic entity. Not sure if it's the demon bear or not, but all the Rob Liefeld stuff that came later aside, it's probably in retrospect one of the most famous New Mutant arcs out there that
Yes.
often gets named when they talk about like if you want to read New Mutants, Demon Bear gets thrown around, and it's interesting, like you said, because I like you said, I at the time I don't think it was received as well, and I think the reason was that it was ahead of its time in that respect. Like people weren't used to this kind of like narrative and this kind of art and this kind of like story in like a mainstream superhero comic because this almost could read like some kind of like indie comic.
Well, yeah, it's also nothing like I've ever read from Claremont. I mean, I haven't read
Yeah,
all of his stuff, but I've never read a story quite like this from his
yeah.
pen. You know, like it's definitely different. It's a different take.
It's very
This is
intense,
another
man.
great cover. This is the
Oh,
cover
dude,
that
yeah,
that's the one on
that's
your
the
tray.
cover of the collection. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's very intense, man. Like it and I think that the 3 issues was a perfect length because any shorter would just cut the story short, and any longer would drag it out. Like this needed to be like a short, sweet, intense story, and like almost like relentless, like like a nightmare.
Mhm.
And I mean, like they achieved that goal, man.
Yeah, I think I mean it is. It's a great story. You have her teammates coming together and they're all kids, right? Like they're young teenagers.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not super old. And they all come together to kind of save her. And even within that, like there's a little bit of bickering, you know, between Rain and Ileana. Like they kind of clash a little bit. Ileana, you kind of see her powers and what she's like, she has to like create this bubble because like Danny getting attacked in the woods by the demon boar, she has real wounds, right? And
Yeah,
that panel of when she's in the hospital and they just list off all the different like injuries
dude,
she
she's
has.
like got like a crushed vertebrae. Like she's fucked.
Skull
Like
trauma, possible concussion, crush and subluxed vertebrae, possible abdominal trauma, multiple lacerations, torso and extremities, visible
she's
compound
been mauled
fracture.
for yeah, she's literally been mauled by a bear. Like the kind of
Yeah.
injuries you'd probably have if you ran into a bear in the woods.
And I love that the cop that comes in and he's like what happened? And he's like attacked by a bear, and he's like a bear, you know.
Like
And then
this is like Westchester, New York,
yeah,
like
Sunspot's like, oh yeah, we're just an elaborate practical joke. Like, yeah, what do you think, dude? You know, like it's definitely something like a young dude would say to like a cop, like what do you fucking think
Yeah,
we're doing, man? You know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, and Claremont always excelled at those little bits of characterization. You know that like a quip here, a line there that makes the character like a little bit more deep. I also wanted to point out that Cannonball here in this
Oh,
panel is wearing
I was just gonna say
the
that the
Cherry
Terry
Austin
Austin.
fan club hat. Like that was a Sienkiewicz like inside joke probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Fucking one ink slinger fucking shouting out another.
Another amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I found interesting too was the back of my trade has a parental advisory logo.
That makes
Like I mean, I actually don't even see the Comics Code logo on the issue here. I don't know if they had dropped doing them at this time,
no,
but yeah,
they were still a thing. I mean, the Comics
then
Code Authority was still around into the
yeah,
2000s.
this arc doesn't seem to have it.
Yeah, and it's because the word demon.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like
And
I know that was
Marvel
really
was always okay. I mean, they did that infamous Spider-Man story where like Harry was like
on
going through like
drugs.
drugs. Yeah, and like they didn't get approved. So
Yeah.
I didn't notice that until just now. But I'm like, you're right. Probably the word demon. And I mean, I think the overall like atmosphere of the story is like very foreboding. Like it wasn't. I mean, as much as like comics at this time, especially, were still meant for kids. This doesn't seem like a story for kids, really. Like because
No.
you kind of have to be a little bit more adult to understand like there's all these themes going on, Danny's dealing with like the trauma of her parents' death, and like the
Yeah.
demon represents that. It's very layered, very symbolic, like very intelligent, like elevated writing. Which it goes to show you that Claremont was a very, very like literary writer.
Yeah, I feel like everything though that I've written from Claremont, whether it's connected with me or not, like he never wrote down. You know what I
No,
mean?
no,
He
and
never wrote down to
he
get.
never. It's not pretentious either. You know
No,
what I
no,
mean?
not pretentious. But I'm
Like
saying like he
it
never doesn't write it like his comics were not written for like a young kid. And it's not to
no,
say that a young kid couldn't read it, but it's not going to make it so it's where it's just a very surface level. And like that's you go back to his X-Men stuff and like you can see plot points like from the beginning that he was laying down and then
yeah,
didn't pay off for years. And he just kept like one after another after another. He just kept fucking snowballing like plot lines that just kept paying off. And I think that's why everybody loves his X-Men run so much, and
I
that's
mean,
why
he wrote the X-Men
he
for
wrote
like
more
30
X-Men than
something
anybody
years.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, not no diss to like Lee and Kirby who created the title. Like I think when I think X-Men, I think Claremont. As far as like who laid the groundwork for the stuff in popular culture that we know from the X-Men today, like a lot of it did come from Claremont.
Yeah, I mean, look, the X-Men didn't even sell that well to the point where it got
No.
canceled. It
And then
was
there was reprints for a
reprints.
while,
Yeah.
yeah.
So look, I mean, like, there's a reason why Claremont is so like well regarded when it comes to the X-Men run. And even I love this little interlude too, where you get the Starjammers, you get Binary, right? Like that lasts for like
that
2 pages and a panel at the top. Like so,
yeah,
like
because
that
that's like with the whole
Warlock
thing, and
stuff. Yeah.
like again, like I said, he's compounding so much stuff into 3 issues, but it doesn't feel overstuffed. It doesn't feel confusing. It's a very for such a dreamlike, like surreal narrative. It's also like very straightforward. It's I know those sound like contradictory things. In the execution, it's not contradictory. It just works.
No. And I love that no matter what character is up, like even somebody like a background character like this dude, look how much work he puts into that face.
Yeah,
Looks kind of like Alfred Hitchcock to me a little bit.
I was gonna say I was gonna say that looks like to me like Hitchcock, and that's probably a fair assumption,
Yeah.
especially given like the sort of like like atmosphere they're going
I'm sure
for.
there's probably somewhere like a commentary where somebody's asked that. I know it's not like an original thought. I've never seen that. So I didn't read it somewhere. That's not why I said it, but definitely has like a Hitchcock quality. I love these old ads too. I just gotta say.
Oh, dude, yeah, I was going like I mean, this issue has like an ad for Buckaroo
Buckaroo
Banzai, like I mean, just looking through that's an episode for another day, but just flipping through these old comics is an experience in itself, man.
Oh
Like,
yeah, dude.
but yeah, man, classic storyline. You can find these issues fairly easily. You might have to dig around to find like your best price for them. Like I said, like this collection, I found as a remainder at Books a Million. You could probably find it pretty cheaply too. So like it's one of those classic stories that if you love comics, you want to have. Dude, I mean, it's just like page after page is good.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, look. I don't like. I really don't have much else other to say than it like, because I feel like you said. Well, I mean, I guess we've kind of spoiled some stuff. I didn't spoil the ending, but I won't. Even though this story's been out since '84, but
yeah,
I went in blindly. All I knew were some of the. I knew all the New Mutants characters. Obviously, I knew who they were, but I didn't know anything about the plot. I knew very loosely what they were fighting, which was a demon bear, but that was about it. That's all I knew. I didn't know much about it, and I think that made me enjoy the story more because I never knew what was going to happen. Like if you knew the ending, like I think that would take away from kind of your reading experience a little bit. But it's some of Claremont's. It's probably top 3 Claremont stories for me. And
yep.
I love the Bill Sienkiewicz art. I think it's just phenomenal,
Yep.
and it's so cool.
I agree
to
with
see.
both those statements, and I just realized something. It's crazy to think that this shit is almost 40 years old. 40 years ago, they were doing this storyline, and it still seems like a fresh comic book story today. That's really all you got to think about to wrap your head around how good Sienkiewicz and Claremont were on this arc.
Yeah, this is a timeless story. This doesn't feel
absolutely
dated, except
man.
for Sunspot, like throwing out his little Madonna comments every time.
I mean, yeah, those are pop culture touchstones that you can't get away from.
That's the only thing. It's Sunspot's fault. Sunspot is the one that fucking kind of dated it a little bit, but other than that, yeah, it's a great story.
And, great covers. I mean, Sienkiewicz is always killing it on the corner box art too.
And I have some issues after. I was gonna continue reading through.
Yeah, I do too. I actually pulled some out. Like I have issue 30. I have issue 23 here that has Cloak from Cloak and Dagger, and like this is issue 22. I mean, it's not related to this arc at all. But dude, look at this fucking cover.
I know that's the one. I don't know. I pulled out 21 and 22 because I thought at first when I grabbed them, I thought that it was longer. But the covers are phenomenal.
Well, maybe we should take a dive into some more New Mutants in the future because, like, now I'm wanting to sort of go ahead and read more.
Yeah,
I
think 21 might be a standalone. Maybe we could just do like an overhead one of that one.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea because I mean, I think that this period of New Mutants deserves like a page by page look at some of the issues, man, because it's fantastic work. And like now that I flipped through it, I'm like, there really always was kind of a horror vibe to the whole series, at least at the beginning. So it's an interesting when you compare it to like the other X-Men titles. New Mutants, they were definitely trying to do something different, and I think maybe that's why it took a while to catch on or didn't catch on right away because in a lot of ways it's a very experimental comic book.
Yeah, it's definitely like I mean I've seen the interiors of the earlier stuff from like the Epic collection, but it is such a departure from the 17 issues that preceded it. Like Sienkiewicz comes in and the book just changes, drastically. Yeah. So,
and I mean, he left his DNA. I mean, like to the point where like he's very as much as he's associated with like Elektra Assassin and Moon Knight, he's also very associated with New Mutants. A lot of people immediately go to this storyline in particular as the classic New Mutant story.
Dude, and I'm so glad that they're doing the artisan edition of Sienkiewicz's art, the artist edition that they had at IDW that's long out of print. It's not going to be as large, but I want to get that.
I didn't even know that's coming out. I think that's a must buy right there.
Yeah, dude, they announced a few artist editions that are going to be coming out. They have the John Byrne X-Men which has like Death of Jean Grey, Dark Phoenix, and all that stuff, and then they have a Walt Simonson Fantastic Four. There was another one that I knew that I was gonna get. I can't remember right now. Whatever. But anyways, they're always good. They're gonna do a Frank Miller Daredevil artist edition. Ooh. So like when they announced all those, and then because when they go out of print, it's like they're not gonna reprint an artist edition for the most part. They've rarely done it.
A lot of money to get that.
Rarely. Like they did it with the Dave Stevens Rocketeer one last year. They re-released that because of the anniversary. But I'm cool with getting a smaller version and just getting to look at the original art. It's not large, but I can't wait to pick that up because I know the Kayfabe channel did a video on it, and that's kind of what made me want to pick up the New Mutant stuff, to be honest with you, because they went through the artist edition And I was like, oh, I gotta get those comics, the originals.
Agreed.
So
yeah,
we'll definitely do some more New Mutants. We'll get
yeah,
one
I'm down, man. I'm down. I'll keep the issues I pulled out handy. I won't put them back in the box just yet.
All right, cool. Sounds good, dude. And yeah, it was a blast talking to Mutants. If you guys haven't read it, go pick it up, whether it's the trade. I guess if you have to read it digital, you can, or if you want to smell that,
that beautiful
newsprint,
smell,
go
man,
pick up the back issue.
I wish I could get a candle. Somebody needs to make.
I said that too. There's got to be a way.
I mean, yeah, there's got to be a way. Candle makers out there, try and get it done, please.
Yeah, and make sure you follow us on social media. Manny's links down below. Comic Lounge links are down below. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid goes up. And on that note, we're out.